Thanks, Jimmy Carter. Rest in peace. In many ways, Jimmy Carter was a historic president. Don't get mad at me. I think Jimmy Carter is one of the best presidents ever. Those aren't my words. That was how they announced it on their special coverage on NPR. And I hate how people talk about Jimmy Carter with this trepidation, like you can't give him credit for being a good president, or you have to, temper it or something. When you think about it, probably the reason they act like that is because of the things that made him so cool, like being a total underdog, and that's the thing being somebody they weren't planning or controlling to become president. Um, some something that they don't want to have happen again, so they have always downplayed that, even though it's a really cool thing that like everybody loves an underdog and a thing that everybody should respect and love Jimmy Carter for. I love him for lots of different things. I guess as a fellow Georgian, maybe just people from Georgia care about each other at a deeper level than anybody else, even if we don't always act like it. But it seems like people don't really give Jimmy Carter credit for things. They were giving him some credit. I'll give them credit for giving him credit for the Panama Canal, for peace between Israel and Egypt. And I think he did a lot of other good things. I think one of the good things he tried to do that he didn't succeed at doing was legalizing herbs. And we have so many examples of why that's great 40 years later, 50 years later. But if you think about how much more advanced we could have been if we'd taken advantage of that advantage 50 years ago and weren't just making ourselves a century behind or another half century behind. I think something they said to sum up at the end of their coverage on NPR really kind of spoke to that. They said something like, his decisions, his moral decisions, will be seen in better and better light as we move into the future. Like, people haven't been good enough to appreciate how good Jimmy Carter was, but as people get better, then they can appreciate how good Jimmy Carter is in future decades, or but my point is that we can stop holding ourselves back centuries um, by just being bad when the one thing that made Jimmy Carter different and better than other presidents is being a loving, honest person and being true, being loyal to his principles and to his people and to all the people, to be loyal to the principle of being the president for all people. They were talking about how the Allman Brothers helped him get elected at the end of their coverage, and I never even knew this. I became such a big fan of the Grateful Dead once I had heard more of their music. I didn't get into the Allman Brothers lore, although my ex's aunt, I think, dated one of them. Anyway, uh, they helped him get elected. Did a big fundraiser for him. They said Jimmy Carter said four things at the fundraiser: one, I'm running for president; two, I'm gonna win; three, uh, I don't need your help. Will you help me? And um, thanks. And then four, he said, and here's the Allman Brothers. I'm going to introduce the Allman Brothers. So I think he won people over, and they made some money to run ads in Iowa. And one in Iowa, that was just a week or two before, or a month or two before Iowa, they said. And so he had this campaign that included the Allman Brothers helping him out, and that they were, when Greg Allman was involved in a trial for substance use, that uh, Jimmy Carter didn't abandon him. It's like, that's an important thing to have, is an honest president, and shows how much we miss that, to have the honesty of being somebody who's honest, and why I think Jimmy Carter will be seen as one of the greatest presidents. I see him as top three, top five at least. Maybe I'm just biased, like I said, because of Georgia. But um, I think people will see him as one of the best presidents ever because of the honesty, and because that makes him stand out as president. But I think also mostly because of peace. Oh, and then speaking of the thing with that they and for trying to legalize things for us that could have helped everybody, he didn't get credit for that because they pushed somebody out of a window off a roof or something and spoiled the whole plan. But he was working on that, and it would have been a big advantage if we done it. Just like other things, if we done the right thing now, it'll put us decades and centuries ahead of if we all we're doing is holding ourselves back from the right decisions on green energy, on peace, and on things like good medicine, natural medicine. And so, the last thing I want to say is the reason why they besmirch Jimmy Carter, is irresponsible of them to continue to act like there's something we should blame Jimmy Carter for, and it's when Iran took American hostages, and Jimmy Carter actually negotiated their release, but because he was running against Ronald Reagan paid Iran to hold the hostages longer to make Jimmy Carter look bad so he could win, which is all on Ronald Reagan. We shouldn't blame Jimmy Carter for that. And any news person who's ever going to mention the Iran hostages, American hostage crisis in Iran, should be should should mention that. Should talk about that newsworthy aspect of it, especially since Netanyahu did this exact same thing for Putin and Trump to hurt Kamala and Joe Biden. So anyway, I feel like if we'd reported on that news before, we would have avoided repeat of that history this time around. And I just respect Jimmy Carter and would appreciate more respect being shown to him in our media than acting like he did something wrong when everything he did was right and other people messed things up and messed up our system to do bad things, and we see worse and worse results from it. We need to put a stop to that. But thank you, Jimmy Carter. Rest in peace and bless you, and all the stuff you did for Habitat for Humanity. The other thing I'd like to say is, he shows how you can do more after you're president. Although he did the peace in Egypt and Israel, did a bunch of other stuff, I'm sure, that I didn't get a chance to mention, or they didn't ever mention to remind us of. And Panama Canal, and was president and was a good person. But that he did so much with Habitat for Humanity, and it helps millions of people, and the Carter Center that helps millions of people, and eradicated disease and things like that, that I think we should all be grateful for and thankful for and talk about. But we should also talk about the other things he did that I'm not remembering right now, but that were surely good things because he was one of our best presidents. And we should have an example of such an American president again. Thank you.